Welcome back, everybody, to the Westlake Hornets Teambuilder Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. As today, we got a lot to cover. Just get your popcorn ready, because this one's going to be a long one. That's what she said. And it's going to be a fun one. Our Westlake Hornets are coming off a nice 34-31 victory in the Rose Bowl over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It was a close game. We had control pretty much the whole time, but Notre Dame played well. Looking at the stats, Peyton Curtis was not at his best. 3 interceptions. He only threw 8 all season, including these 3. So if he's considering the NFL draft as he is eligible, this game will not help his stock. We could not run the ball to save our lives. Dante Savage finished with 12 yards. Patrick Daly did have a 72-yard run, but outside of that, our rushing attack was non-existent. Receiving, Malik Brown with a career day, 7 catches for $129 and 2 scores. Nigel Wiggins was pretty good, so was Noah Newton. The offensive line was good outside of the run blocking. The run blocking obviously was atrocious, but the pass blocking was pretty good. The only sacks allowed were 2 by the senior Donald Shaw, the only senior starter on the entire offense. Defensively, we were led in tackles by the senior safety Brenton Scott, 7 for senior linebacker Owen Jackson, and for sacks, 1 for Cole Spencer, Steve Harvey, 2 for Marcus Shelton, and then an interception for Josh Wilson, his 9th of the year, which is a school record. Also, last episode, we watched the national championship between Alabama and Texas. I'm not going to spoil it right now because it was a thriller, so I'm going to give you 5 seconds to click off this and watch that. Okay, Texas won in overtime, and it was a very exciting game, very thrilling ending. Kyle Jackson, Owen's younger cousin, played very well. 2 rushing scores, 2 passing scores, en route to win the game's MVP. And now he can brag to his older cousin, that he has more championships. So now we're going to simulate, then we're going to look at bowl results, stats, All-Americans, all that good stuff. So let's just do that first, and whoop-de-doo. A few Hornets broke some school records, including sacks in a career, originally held by one of the OG Hornets, Conrad Novak. Well, that record has been broken by Cole Spencer, who racked up 47 sacks in essentially 2 seasons of play. He didn't get on the field as a freshman, and he's done that these past 2 seasons. I think he'd be crazy not to declare for the draft, but he didn't last year, so who knows. Also, Nigel Wiggins has broken the record for receiving touchdowns in a season. 12 is set by a default player, but I'd have to assume guys like Everett Lemieux and Cortez Fourn have hit 12 before. But now it's no longer a question. We know Nigel Wiggins is the holder of that. And those are the only 2 records broken, surprisingly. Wiggins is close to the all-time school record for receiving touchdowns in a career. I think he's like 3 away from tying Everett Lemieux on that one. So looking at the stats for the team, starting off with the passing, obviously the main quarterback was Peyton Curtis. And you got to remember he did miss roughly about, 2.5 games of action. And he was efficient, 69% completion, nice. Best passer rating in the country, I believe. Good amount of yards. He's had a career high, believe it or not. Career low in touchdowns, but remember he missed time. And then 8 interceptions. The picks were not a problem. It was only really a struggle in the Rose Bowl. He only threw 5 in the regular season, and he threw 3 in that one game. But in the time he did miss, we saw a mix of Mike Hadley and Rodney Allen. Hadley got some playing time. He was not particularly good, if we're being honest. So that's why Rodney Allen got the starts over Hadley. Allen could be the starter once Peyton Curtis goes, and Allen showed plenty of upside. 28 for 44, 568, 9 touchdowns, 2 picks. I like what I saw from Allen, and obviously once Curtis goes, he'll be competing with Stephen Westwood for the future starter position. On to a rushing game, Dante Savage was good, almost 1,100 yards, 20 touchdowns. I was expecting more of a breakout year from him. He was great last year, and it's not all his fault. The run blocking was not good. That's really the one weakness of this football team is the run blocking. But he still wasn't as explosive, only 11 rushes for more than 20 yards, less than last year. Noticeably, yes, less yards per game and yards per carry. Also got to remember that is due in part because of the offensive line. And in the receiving game, he wasn't really used too much. Only 6 catches for 64 yards. Not all his fault, once again, because we have really good receivers on this team. And then his partner in crime, Patrick Daly, had another solid season as a change of pace back. 69 nice carries for 409 yards and 5 scores. He was solid, nothing crazy, but he did his job. Receiving, Nigel Wiggins had a career year. He was good as a freshman, he was good as a sophomore. He had exactly 825 receiving yards in both of those seasons. But this year he passed the 1,000 mark, also a career high in touchdowns with 15, career high in receptions as well. Malik Brown was a nice safety blanket at that slot position. Put up similar numbers to last year, definitely more receptions, but similar amount of yards, similar amount of touchdowns as well. And he was at his best in the Rose Bowl, and if he does declare, which I kind of doubt, but if he were to, it would be a pretty big loss. Same with Nigel Wiggins. Ori Ayuluko, at that number 4 receiver spot, did what number 4 receivers do on this team, make big plays. Obviously, his brother Ayo Ayuluko is known as the poster child for number 4 receivers on this team, and Ori was probably the second best receiver on this team if you look at yards mainly. And then Noah Newton, his production sort of fizzled out as the season went along, but he was still pretty good. 821 yards, 5 touchdowns. Ronald Young, decent year as the tight end. Nothing crazy with him. The offensive line was solid, at least pass blocking wise. The pass blocking was actually really, really good. It's just for run blocking that really struggled for this team. On to the defense. Owen Jackson led the way in tackles. He's obviously going to be a huge, huge loss. Sean Briggs, Brenton Scott, each over 70. Tackles for loss, Cole Spencer with 28, which was tied for the most in college football. 26 for Owen Jackson. Marcus Shelton, Ray Johnson, and Lewis Kahn also in double digits. 17 sacks for Spencer, 9 for Marcus Shelton, 7 for Owen, 4 for Johnson, which is a little bit disappointing considering he had double digits as a freshman. And then interceptions, 9 for Josh Wilson, which led college football. 3 for Andy Pino, 2 for John Paul Patterson, 1 for Harvey, Wheaton, Scott, Kahn, and Jones. Kicking. Volker Gantz, the true freshman. It was a roller coaster season for him. He had his ups and downs, but when it mattered, he played well. Had the game-winning field goal in the Rose Bowl. Did not miss an extra point all year. So there's growth to be had, but he showed potential. And then punting. Alberto Prompel only had to punt it 23 times, and that's the story with him. He's never had to punt it more than 29 times in his career, but quality punter these past 4 seasons, even if we didn't need him too much. Part of the benefits of only using 7-minute quarters. Kick returns was a mix of Daly and Briggs. Sean Briggs was a little bit better. He had a kick return touchdown. Daly will be the main return man next year. I think the secondary one will probably be Ori Ayuluko, if I had to guess, but we'll probably determine that through practice. Briggs was the main punt returner as well, and he was pretty solid. So those are the stats. Now on to the awards. We know Mike Lane of Air Force won the Heisman. Looking at All-Americans first, looking at the All-NCAA first team, we do see Nigel Wiggins is on there. The only Donald Shaw is there as well. Surprisingly, I feel like Shaw is our worst offensive lineman this season. Defensively, we have a bunch. Cole Spencer, Marcus Shelton, Owen Jackson, Josh Wilson, Andy Pino, Brenton Scott, Sean Briggs. There's Alonzo Young. If you watch the national championship video, I was absolutely obsessed with this dude. He has a rocket for a leg. I checked his kick power. It is unsurprisingly at 99. Looking at the all-second team, Neil Scott, Mike Carter on the offensive line make it. We also had Ray Johnson, which I think is a little bit generous. Lewis Kahn, John Paul Patterson. And then looking at the all-freshman team, we had Ori Ayuluko, Josh McClelland, Octavius October, Lewis Kahn. There is John Paul Patterson, so pretty much all of our freshman starters for the most part. Looking at the all Pac-12 teams, all first team, we see Dante Savage, Nigel Wiggins, basically the whole offensive line, Neil Scott, Mike Carter, Jamar Porter, and Donald Shaw. Defensively, we got Cole Spencer, Ray Johnson, Marcus Shelton, Owen Jackson, Lewis Kahn. There's Corey Britton, Champ Britton's younger brother. Josh Wilson, Andy Pino, Brenton Scott, Sean Briggs, and Alberto Prompel. And then looking at the second team, there's Kobe Britton, another one of Champ's brothers. We also have Octavius October along with John Paul Patterson and Steve Harvey. So that's pretty good. Next up, we're going to look at the awards, and the Maxwell went to Mike Lane of Air Force. If you see his numbers, he's very deserving of all the awards. 2,600 yards, 32 touchdowns. He was absolutely incredible. None of our players in the running. Walter Camp also went to Mike Lane. Pretty much any award he was eligible for, he won, and deservedly so. Unfortunately, we got no one in here. The Chuck Bednarik Award went to our very own Owen Jackson. Cole Spencer and Josh Wilson also in the top 3. Andy Pino, Sean Briggs, Brenton Scott also in the running. The Bronco Nagruski went to Cole Spencer. Owen Jackson finishing in 2nd. Davey O'Brien went to Dallas Maynard of Florida. No Peyton Curtis in here, and that is because rushing yards... Will sacks count as a loss of rushing yards? I don't know why in this game. I don't know if that's an actual thing in college football, not that I know of. But even so, that is kind of annoying. Otherwise, he would have been in the running. Let's just look at Chris Hawkins, for instance. Curtis had more yards, less touchdowns, more picks, noticeably more yards per game, higher rating, higher completion percentage. So it's really just about the loss of yards on the sacks. Dilk Walker went to Mike Lane, obviously. None of our players in the running. Fred Biletnikoff went to Tyrone Murphy. Nigel Wiggins finishes in 4th. But John Mackey went to Ryan Holloway. Obviously none of our players. This is not tight end U. The Outland Award went to Patrick Perez. Mike Carter finishes in 5th place. And then the Remington also went to Perez with Mike Carter finishing in 4th. On to the Lombardi Award. That went to our very own Cole Spencer. Marcus Shelton finished in 7th. Best Linebacker went to Owen Jackson. We are legally changing the name of this award to the Owen Jackson Award. Lewis Kahn finishes in 6th. On to the Jim Thorpe Award. That goes to Josh Wilson, and deservedly so. Andy Pino in 2nd. Sean Briggs in 3rd. John Paul Patterson Briggs is in 4th, sorry. Patterson in 5th. Brenton Scott in 6th. The Lou Groza went to, unsurprisingly, Alonzo Young. His longest field goal was only 53? That's all? That's disappointing. Ray Guy went to Andrew Watkins. And then the best returner went to Jason Owens. Sean Briggs rounding it out at number 11. So now on to the bowl results. We obviously know what happened in the Natty. That went to Texas. We know we won our game. It's now time to look at the rest. Starting with our favorite bowl, the Las Vegas Bowl, that went to Colorado State as they narrowly defeated Colorado. The defending champion Baylor Bears lose to USC. So Baylor, the only team we lose to, finishes under 500. Other than that, not too much interesting stuff. My Ducks lose in the Fight Hunger Bowl. In the Alamo Bowl, Oklahoma beats Washington. That looked like a good game. Surprised they won by so much. Clemson obviously destroys Vandy. We got Stanford losing to Miami in the Sun Bowl, so the team we lose to in the conference championship, or not the team we lose to, the team that lost to us, is unable to win their game. Mississippi State beats Wisconsin. LSU over Michigan in the Capital One Bowl. Obviously, we know the Rose Bowl. Georgia narrowly defeats Air Force in the Fiesta Bowl. Army defeats Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. Virginia Tech surprisingly does not clobber USF in the Orange Bowl. To be fair, I thought USF had a worse record, but still, if you're the number 3 team, you want someone better than the University of South Florida. Kansas State beats South Carolina. Kansas State lost? Really? That's a surprise. I was insulting South Carolina when I saw this game on the schedule. But good for the Gamecocks, proving me wrong. My Hilltoppers won the GoDaddy Bowl. I know I'm not legally a Western Kentucky fan, but they're my favorite non-Power 5 school. And then obviously we know what happened in the Natty. Texas won in a very, very good game. We have some very good news. The Westlake Hornets have decided to make a contract extension for head coach Mason Conway. So he's going to be sticking around for another 4 years, and obviously this deal will be accepted. we don't want to go anywhere but Westlake, and credit to him. He has built this team up from the ground. His first year wasn't too successful, but other than that, outside of year one, we've either won a conference championship or a bowl game every single year, which is pretty darn impressive. 90-32 all-time record, 22-10 versus top 25, 5-3 in bowl games. So for the next 4 years, Conway is sticking around. We have hit the saddest part of the offseason, players leaving, but first we got to do coaching changes. As you can see, 27 upgrades available for the offensive coordinator. So that means our longtime OC, Doc Holliday, is gone. He's been the offensive coordinator, I think, for the past 5 seasons. And the new one is Gus Malzahn, the former Auburn head coach. So it's actually a name that's pretty well known. And then Chris Kiffin at defensive coordinator. He was not our defensive coordinator last year. I forget the D coordinator's name last season, but nonetheless, we have 2 new coordinators, including Gus Malzahn, which should be very fun, having a very experienced coach in there. He's won, one national championship, made another one. So he definitely knows what he's doing. He's developed a few quarterbacks in his time, including Cam Newton. So now we got to find where our old guys went. There's Matt Rule. He's now the head coach of Air Force. That's pretty cool, I guess. Is that Joe Burrow? Jimmy Burrow. Okay, close enough. So obviously, as we well know, Mason Conway was extended. Doc Holliday actually retired. So he's not moving on somewhere else. He has just decided to hang up the clipboard. And obviously, Gus Malzahn is his replacement. And then Mark D'Onofrio, that was the other coordinator. He has left for a new job. Chris Kiffin replacing him. I don't know if he's related to Lane Kiffin, who could be accepting the Arkansas job in real life. So let's see where our good pal Mark went. Mark D'Onofrio is now the head coach at Ohio. And that's actually a pretty good job. The Bobcats have developed really nicely in this series. Back in Season 7, they made the national championship. So this program knows what they're doing. Their old coach, Dallas, left for a new job. And I'm curious where Chris Kiffin came from to see how we acquired him. And Kiffin, he was originally the defensive coordinator at Colorado State. Obviously, he left to get this golden opportunity here for a premier program. So welcome, Chris Kiffin, and we wish the best to our older coordinators, Mr. Mark D'Onofrio at Ohio and Doc Holliday in retirement. So now, the moment of truth, players leaving. This is easily the scariest part of the offseason. We obviously know the seniors are going, but what about transfers? What about the draft? Remember, we can only accept 3 players who are transferring. We can only convince 3 to come back in the rest of the series, and we can only convince 2 more players leaving for the draft. So, let's find out who will be leaving. Whoa! Okay, we got a few guys declaring, including Dante Savage, Malik Brown, and Jimmy Gray. No one is trying to transfer, though, so wait, what? Our projected first rounders are Mike Hadley and Brian Barnes? That is so hilarious. But let's look at these declaring players first. Jimmy Gray is going to go. He's never really been important. He wouldn't have had a big role next year. Malik Brown has decided to declare, and we have guys behind at wide receiver. It's going to sting losing him, but I think we'll be fine. And with his great Rose Bowl performance, I think that sort of fueled his draft stock. He's only going to be a 6th rounder, though. I think that's a little bit harsh. And then Dante Savage. I don't know what I want to do here. I'm very tempted to bring him back, but we have guys behind him who are fine. Patrick Daly can start. Jason Gibbs. Heck, maybe we move someone's position. Maybe we start a freshman. So, Dante Savage's career will end a little bit less than expected, but we got him knowing that I feel like his goals were not so focused on college and more so focused on the NFL. When we looked at him at high school, we knew this guy had an NFL skill set. And am I surprised that he's not going to stay here all 4 years? No, not really. He's so talented, and I think he's absolutely ready. And if his bad offensive line was not holding him back here, I think he could have done a little bit more. So now on to the seniors. 2 first-rounders, and I don't know if it could be 2 more ironic players, including Mike Hadley, a career backup who has started 3 games in his career. That was because Peyton Curtis was injured, and Hadley threw 8 career passing touchdowns, 1,069 giggity career yards. So to say I'm surprised he's a first-round pick is an understatement, but he is a 99 overall. And then the other one is Brian Barnes, who has not played since he was a freshman. Remember, he had that big storyline with the recruiting scandal. And to be fair, he did catch a pass this season. It was late against USC. I don't know why he was in the game. But other than that, 21 career catches, 236 career yards, 2 career touchdowns. These guys are first-round picks. Yet we have guys like Dante Savage and Malik Brown getting drafted in the 4th and 6th rounds. We got Brenton Scott as a 3rd rounder. So the 1-year starter at safety, he will be moving on to the next level. Donald Shaw, he was a starter for all 4 years of his career. He's going in round 6. And then the punter, Alberto Prompel, in the 7th. He is our 2nd punter to get drafted. Remember, back in season 5, Kevin McKinney was picked. So Owen Jackson goes undrafted. Sean Briggs goes undrafted. That is shocking. More so on Briggs because he's a 96. But let's highlight these other seniors first. Starting with wide receiver Kyle Rivero. Never had a big role with the team. Only 12 career catches. Only 1 career touchdown. But we wish him the best as he moves on to the next level. Julian Petaway. This was a fun player. And he was not on the field too often. But 95 speed. 95 excel. I'm sure if we got him early in the series, he would have been a big addition to the offense. He had 2 touchdowns in the Utah State game, and in the second half of that game, he was extremely explosive. Unfortunately, that's really the only time he got on the field all year, and didn't see much action the rest of his career, so we should wish him the best of luck moving forward. Jamar Porter, the guard, 1-year starter. It's been nice having you, buddy. We wish you the best moving forward. Scott Wheaton, he's always been good depth at linebacker, always been a good leader in the locker room. Never started. It was always Lawrence McCoon or whoever was before him, whose name I'm blanking on. But Wheaton only had 13 career tackles, 1 this year. He did have an interception this year and a forced fumble last year. So he has made some nice impacts in the limited time he was in. But probably the 2 biggest senior losses on this entire roster are Owen Jackson and Sean Briggs. Starting with Briggs, he was a 4-year starter since his redshirt freshman season, and he has such a fun skill set. I mean, just look at these stats. He's absurd. He's ridiculously athletic, and I don't know how he's not getting picked in the NFL. I get he's not a traditional strong safety, and to be fair, I don't think he'd play strong safety at the next level. But shoot, as a running back, a receiver, a special teamer, I think this guy could have a role. Pretty good tackler. I would have liked to see him make more big plays on the defense, but, I mean, the offensive skill set is there. And I wanted to use him a little bit at running back. Never happened. I wanted to use him a little bit at receiver. Happened, kind of. 15 career catches, 4 touchdowns, though. 2 of which were in his debut against Ohio State. And then the biggest loss on this team. Owen Hitstick Jackson has graduated and will not get picked. I think he absolutely deserves to get picked. He's not undersized. I mean, he's a giant. 6'6", 254. The production is there. The athletic traits are kind of there. He's not a bad athlete. And he's been such a good player for this team. Maybe the best defensive player in Westlake history. I think he's right up there in the conversation with guys like Ash Jakar, Cole Spencer, and I'd probably put Josh Wilson in that discussion as well. 59 career tackles for loss, 264 tackles, 15 sacks, 4 picks. He was known as a hard hitter, and he only got 4 forced fumbles, all of which were at the latter half of this season, so we wish Owen the best of luck. And now I'm curious about some of the other schools. Who else will be going places? Starting with Alabama, the national champions. Or the national champion runner-up, sorry. Philip Richwalski, round 1. Richie Johnson, round 5. Alonzo Young's not getting picked. You've got to be kidding me. I'm very disappointed in that. Looking elsewhere, Auburn, Gus Malzahn's former job. David Fletcher, first round. I remember him coming out of high school. A few other players as well for the Tigers. Baylor, we played and lost to this team. They only have one guy getting drafted. Fullback Richard Todd in the 3rd round. Okay. I'm not going to judge picking a fullback that high. Clemson, they've sort of fallen off in this series. They do have a first-round receiver, Alex Garcia. Their quarterback, Albert Meeks, is not getting drafted. Colorado, they're in our conference. A few guys getting picked in the late rounds. Not a bad team. The Florida Gators, Dallas Maynard, round 2. I'm surprised he's not going to the first, but I guess he's a little bit undersized at 6'1". Florida State, they are bound to have a few guys. Only one day 1 or day 2 pick. That's running back Wesley Parker. Looking at the Georgia Bulldogs, they have a few players going high, including quarterback Greg Garcia. He will be a first-round pick. So will Thomas Roach, talented linebacker. Courtney Fisher was a very good player. And then a defensive tackle there as well. So, wow, a lot of losses for Georgia. Gee whiz. Illinois, for the memes, they have one guy getting picked, Chris Gray. Iowa has a pair of second-rounders on the offensive line. Not too bad. The Jayhawks even have a guy getting picked. 5th round, John Cooper. Kansas State was very good this year. They have no one getting drafted. LSU has a few first-rounders, McPherson, White, and Culp, all on their defense. Next up, we'll take a look at Miami. They have a first-round receiver, Jonathan Powell. Only 7 seniors. That's pretty good. Michigan, they have a first-rounder, and Dan Gardner, offensive tackle. Looking at Navy. Navy's been a very good team. Keith Gaines, quarterback, going in the 6th. He's been a good player for them. Notre Dame, the team we lost to, they got a bunch of guys getting picked. Size Tikiansi, custom recruit, first-round pick. Garrett Racine, a 3rd-round pick. So welcome to the NFL, gentlemen. Wow, they are losing a lot. What about their quarterback? He was a senior, right? Scott Robinson? Okay, maybe he wasn't a senior. Ohio State, they're bound to lose a few guys. Brian Freeman, running back. He's going in the 1st round. What about Ohio? Deono Threo's new job. They have a 6th-round safety, Lorenzo Savoy. Oklahoma, 1st-round defensive tackle, David Tyson. Oklahoma State, 2nd-round receiver, Charles Lewis. 3rd-round running back, and Philip George. The Oregon Duckos, only one player getting picked, defensive end Caleb Edwards. I meant to go to Penn State, but there's Pittsburgh, if you were wondering. Penn State is a 1st-round end, Melvin Hodge. Looking at the defending champion Longhorns, they have some guys getting picked. Safety John Cutler in the 1st. Doug Blanchard going in the 7th. And no Kyle Jackson, he is not going to declare. A&M has a 6th, wide receiver Isaac Walton. UCF has a 7th, Mike Ortiz, wide receiver. What about UCLA? They've got a 1st-round tackle, Ben Campbell. The Trojans, they have some guys getting picked. Will Whaley, tight end in the 2nd. Donnie Scott in the 4th. I'm surprised he's going that late. What about Stanford? What about Corey Britton? Is he getting drafted? Why did I skip over them? Corey Britton, he will be a 3rd-rounder. Brett Dubzinski going in the 2nd. They convinced a bunch of guys to stay. Good for them, I guess. Utah, 4th-round linebacker Matt Parsons. I remember him. Coming out of high school, we wanted him too. Utah State, they have 2 guys getting picked. Justin Simmons in the 2nd. Ricardo Bush in the 4th. I remember Bush coming out of high school, another guy whom we wanted. Washington has Michael Singleton in the 3rd. He's a really good player. And then Tyrone Murphy going in the 4th. Bunch of seniors leaving for them. Washington State has a few transfers. No one getting drafted. Wisconsin has a 1st-round corner, Curtis Mays. And that'll do it for the draft. Ben Campbell, the only declaring player going in the 1st, is Mr. Dante Savage. He'll be leaving us, unfortunately. Malik Brown will be leaving us. And then Jimmy Gray as well. I don't expect us to get any transfers, but I am happy that we're not losing anyone to transfer, so that's good. Here's a look at the draft results. A surprise player sneaking in the 7th, Owen Jackson, ends up getting drafted. So at least he's getting picked. That makes me happy. No Sean Briggs, though. Then transfer requests. Believe it or not, we've never had anyone in the history of the series transfer to our school. And unsurprisingly, through 9 seasons, still no one. Now on to recruiting. This is where the fun really kicks in, my friends. These are the names to get familiar with now, and hopefully you get familiar with these names in the next 3 seasons. Joaquin Tejada, Richard Richards, Jarrett Adams, Jason Poole, and Arch Westwood. So here's a look at our draft results. We have a total of 9 players getting picked, including 2 in the first round, and those first rounders made a total of 3 starts in their collegiate career. I find it funny that out of all the players to go in the first round, it's those 2, especially Brian Barnes, who has not played a damn game since his freshman year, and I'm not counting that 1 catch against USC where he was not supposed to be in the game. Anyway, let's take a look at our current recruiting class first. Currently number 1 in the nation. We got some really, really fun players coming in here. A few guys who could compete for that running back spot, like Reggie Herman and John Cummings. Maybe Jared Adams as well. So running back is going to be a really interesting position. Maybe we have a battle like we did for Season 4, where we played a bunch of guys and then picked one. The player we ended up picking was Alex Ellis. Obviously, that decision went very well for us, as Ellis is undoubtedly the greatest Hornet to ever put on the black and yellow. So first off, we're going to look at Joaquin Tejada. He's the best player on the board, maybe the best player in the entire recruiting class, and he is an absolute monster, and he'd be a big get for our defense. The only team competing with us is Texas A&M. We have a decent lead over them, but we can't be too cautious with him. Jared Adams, an athlete from La Mesa, Texas. A little bit slow to be a running back, I feel, considering the speed we've gotten from guys like Dante Savage and Patrick Daly. But he's still a talented player. Maybe he plays defense, maybe he plays offense, who knows. We have a pretty big lead over UL Lafayette, and we should have gotten him if it weren't for getting screwed with the lock. But we're going to have to put some points in him, but we should get him. Richard Richards, the only player we're not in first place for, currently about 1,100 behind in this battle, and he's a player we want to get. He's talented, and obviously he is a pretty darn sick name. Stanford has already stolen 2 corners from us in this recruiting class, in Terrence Thibodeau and Sean Irons, so we cannot let them steal a 3rd, or else I'll be triggered. Last year they stole Khalil Corbin from us, so... No, Corbin was USC. Wrong California school in Essen there. Jason Poole, corner from Ohio. We have a big lead on him, and if it weren't for getting screwed by the lock, Oklahoma is 12 points off of not being able to get him, and he'd be ours. And Westlake is obviously known as White CBU because it's kind of obvious that not a lot of cornerbacks are white. I'm just going to say it. Can you name a white cornerback in the NFL for me? I can't. And we've had many successful white corners, so I find that kind of weird. Not trying to sound racist or anything, but it's just a position where you primarily see black people. And it's sort of weird that we've had so many white guys play the position. But Poole is talented. He is pretty skinny, though, only 168. And then Arch Westwood, part of that big Westwood family, including Stephen Westwood, who could be the starting quarterback next year for Season 11. He'll be competing with Rodney Allen for that spot. We have a small lead on Arch here, 120 above Arizona. Arizona has his brother Braxton Westwood, or cousin, I don't even know. So let's see how we allocate these points. So this is how we are going to allocate our points. Joaquin Tejada will get a little bit over 3,500. Jared Adams will get 2,180. Richard Richards will get by far the most, almost 4,700. Jason Poole will get 2,340. And Arch Westwood will get 2,270. I would say this was a little bit easier of an offseason compared to most. However, there were some tough decisions with these points. And if we get 4 out of 5 of these players, I think it's safe to say that this would be a success. Anything less, I think, would be a failure. Alright, everybody, this is the moment of truth. Once again, if we get 4 out of 5, I'll be pretty happy with it. So hopefully we do, and this does not disappoint me. Here we go, the moment of truth. Oh. Well, welcome to the team, Richard Richards. What happened? Joaquin goes to Oklahoma State, who was out of the battle. Jared goes to ULM, who was out of the battle. Jason Poole goes to Central Michigan, who was out of the battle. And Arch goes to Arizona. So, I'm surprised, I'm disappointed, but I don't know what to say. We do still get the #1 class in the country, which is good. But we only got one. That's very disappointing. I was expecting more. But at least we got Richards. But I'd prefer to get more. So how far were we off? We were off by a lot on Joaquin Tejada. Jared Adams, ooh, we could have gotten him. Poole, we could have gotten. And Arch, only 505. So Tejada, we lost in a blowout. But if we spread out his points into those three, we could have gotten him. But, oh well, it is what it is. Definitely not what we were hoping for. But I guess we just gotta move on and live with it. So here's a look at the final recruiting class, or all the guys who committed via scholarship. Once again, I was hoping it was more than just Richard Richards, but whatever. We still have a talented roster, and I'm not too worried. So we end up getting the #1 class in the country, obviously. Looks like we only got one walk-on, which would be the wide receiver, Henry. Outside of that, everybody else here has come via scholarship. So I'm happy we got the top class. I'm happy we got Richard Richards, who we weren't supposed to get. But the other four guys we were in first place for, and we didn't land a single one. So kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. And looking at Richard Richards here, we did not have to put any points in him. We could have probably put in like a couple hundred and we would have gotten him. So I'm surprised Stanford has just totally disregarded him, it looks like. And other than that, all we had to do was put in a couple hundred and then spread the points for the other three accordingly. We wouldn't have gotten Tejada regardless, but we could have gotten Jared Adams, we could have gotten Arch Westwood, and we could have gotten Jason Poole. So that kind of stings, but I guess we got to move on to the next stage. Now on to position changes, and we do the few athletes. I was expecting to have an athlete by the name of Jared Adams here, but he decided to go elsewhere, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Curtis is now a 99. That is incredible. So the three athletes we have are Reggie Herman, John Cummings, and Wesley Thomas. So Herman is probably a running back or a receiver. With Malik Brown gone, that could be a need. I can't see him playing tight end because he can't really block. So he'll likely play running back. I think his only problem is that speed is kind of low. But other than that, he's a really, really good player. John Cummings, a 5-star, also very good at running back and a receiver. Can he play defense? He sure can. So maybe we put him at safety. And then Wesley Thomas, he can play quarterback. He can also play running back, and he cannot really play defense. So he'll be an offensive skill position of some sort. I don't really see Thomas having a big role this season. Maybe down the line he could. But I'm curious how I'm going to do these. I'm going to have to think about it a little bit. One of the 5-stars we got was Dante Rollins, the top outside linebacker in the country. And to balance things out, we are going to move him to right outside linebacker because we could go with him or Dylan Washington. Washington's more of a coverage guy, and I feel this left outside is more responsible in coverage, whereas right outside is more of trying to make plays in the backfield. We also have Joe Brewer, who I kind of forgot about. He's a run stopper, so he'll stick here at right outside linebacker. Maybe we move him or Rollins to middle linebacker down the line, but for right now, I think this is what we're going to do. So I've decided my positions for the athletes. We're all going to play offense. You know, if we had Jared Adams, maybe we could have a defensive athlete, but it is what it is. Reggie Herman will be playing wide receiver. John Cummings will play running back, and Wesley Thomas will play quarterback. So that's how we're going to use our athletes, and I don't think I'm going to change any other positions. I actually lied. We do have some more position changes, including outside linebacker Jay Nash. He's going to move inside because I think we could use another one behind Justin McGee. So, welcome to middle linebacker, Jay. Now we are at the training results, and as my good friend Perry Crow describes it, this is the funnest part of the offseason, and he's not lying. So, starting with quarterback, we're going to just go position by position. Peyton Curtis was originally a 99, so he can't really change too much. Rodney Allen is now a 93. Jones is a 92, and Stephen Westwood goes up 6 to an 84. Running back, the position that's going to be the hot topic over these next few weeks before we start the regular season. Jason Gibbs is the highest rated at a 95. Patrick Daly, the probably the clear favorite to win the job. He's going to be a 93. Tim Beck behind him at an 87, and here's everyone else. Jeff Brandt, the fullback, is a 74. Looking at wide receiver, Nigel Wiggins is now a 96. Noah Newton is a 93, so is Frank Bray. Ulrich Luco now an 84, along with Curtis Vincent. So since Malik Brown is gone, we need a new fourth receiver. And Ulrich will probably stay at that number 4 spot. So we're going to need a new slot receiver. We'll probably have a competition between Frank Bray, Curtis Vincent, maybe even have the freshman Reggie Herman in there. Tight end, Ronald Young is now a 92. Ray Wright is an 85. Looking at the O-line, Josh McClellan only goes up 3. Bobby Fagan goes up 5. They're both 84s. Neil Scott is a 96. Mike Carter is a 99. Tavares Canary, is a 58. He'll probably get cut. Patrick Young is now an 88. Brandon Flores is an 82. And then looking at right tackle, the redshirt freshman J.B. Givens, who will be starting there, is an 80. Dwayne Morton is a 77. On to the defense, Cole Spencer is a 96. I don't know how he can possibly get any better, but he does. Delvin Hines is an 86. He's a player I'm excited about. Ray Johnson goes up 5. He's now a 91. Marcus Shelton goes up 5. He's an 88. Octavius October is an 83. Derek Berry is now at an 85. Lawrence McCoon goes up 6. He's one of the biggest risers, it looks like, now at an 89. Justin McGee, the Owen Jackson replacement, is an 88, which I believe is the same rating as Owen, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at right outside, Louis Kahn goes up to an 89. Josh Wilson only up 2. Storyline ensuing? Andy Pino is now a 90, JPP at an 84. Mitchell 83, Kyle Harris 80. Looking at safety, Steve Harvey 91, Marcus Lee 90. I think Marcus Lee will probably be the starter, but we'll have a position battle. And then at strong safety, Marcus Jones is an 84. We could move Harvey to strong safety and just do that, but I'm very intrigued by Marcus Jones. He's a player who I really want to start. Volker is now an 88. Greg Yearley is now a 90. He is the new punter. So here's a look at the official new ratings, a new 99 and Mike Carter, and many players in the 90s. I believe we were a 99 as a team last year, and this squad ratings-wise is even better, so I'm sure we will remain at a 99. Our roster currently has 73 people. The maximum amount of players that can be on a roster is 70, so we need to cut 3. Obviously, we'll just end up cutting 4 to make it 69. Nice. The first player being cut is center Tavares McKinney. We had to keep him last year because we only had 2 centers on the roster, but the additions of Mike Rhodes and Willie Wiggins, McKinney is no longer needed. Thank you for your services. Your duties are no longer needed. The next player being cut is at the defensive tackle position in redshirt freshman Sam Brown. Brown is a former 4-star recruit from the same high school as former Westlake cornerback Adam Alexander, but defensive tackle is a really deep position and we don't really have a spot for him, so his duties have been released. The next player being cut is linebacker Will Woodard. Woodard was a JUCO walk-on from a season ago. We redshirted him last year, and this season he will be released. And the final player being cut is at everyone's favorite position, running back. Former 4-star recruit Mike Johnson is no longer needed. He is definitely the worst running back on the team, and his duties are no longer needed. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. You will be missed. Here we are now at the custom conferences stage, and unlike previous seasons, we decided to make some pretty big changes this time around. Not all of them are supposed to be totally realistic, but we're just trying to have fun with it. Starting with the ACC, Navy will be replacing Boston College. In the American, Texas State will be replacing Navy. There was no change in the Big 12, one of the few conferences that did not see any new differences. In the Big 10, out with Purdue, in with the Ohio Bobcats. So Mark D'Onofrio and his team will be moving to a Power 5 conference. Looking at the Conference USA, Wake Forest has come in from the MAC. Yes, Wake was in the MAC. And Miami of Ohio is joining them. The Independents are only Akron. I don't know why. They went 0-12, I think. in real life, so sucks to suck. Looking at the MAC, no more Miami of Ohio, no more Ohio, and in with Boston College and Purdue. Neither of them were producing at their Power 5 conferences, so they are now here in the MAC. Looking at the Mountain West, there is no change. I could have sworn I did something. Oh, I removed Air Force and replaced them with Washington State. So the Cougars are now in the Mountain West, and Air Force is now in the Pac-12. Air Force will not be in our division, though. They will move to the south, and Colorado will be moved to the north. So no more Washington State, and now we got Air Force, and now we're going to play Colorado every year. The SEC was the only ever conference with no change, and in the Sun Belt, no more Texas State. That's about it. They only have 7 teams in here, including the Hilltoppers, and including Jared Adams, and the... what's their mascot again? Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. Okay, there we go. So now on to the preseason festivities. Here we go. Welcome everybody to season number 10 of the Westlake Hornets Team Builder Dynasty. And as you can see, we are number 1 in the preseason polls for the first time in school history. Now that is pretty cool. Now that we're here at the preseason, we have to do, well, preseason stuff. Starting with red shirts at quarterback, Wesley Thomas, and then Norden Michelik. Yes, Norden Michelik is on the roster. You may recognize this name from the Burmester High Ogden State Championship. Norden was the quarterback of Burmester High, and he did not have plans of becoming a D1 college football player. However, he changed his mind and has decided to walk on at Westlake. Remember that walk-on receiver? I think his name was Justin Henry. Well, I replaced him with Michelik here. I turned Henry into a quarterback at the position change of stage, and then I have edited him to Mr. Norden Michelik, who will be getting redshirted this year. We also have to deal with the fact that he's listed from Valparaiso, Indiana. Whatever. It is what it is. Running back, the only one who we can redshirt is John Cummings, who is competing for the starting job, so for right now, we won't redshirt him, but that could change. Looking at wide receiver, we will redshirt Reggie Herman, Zeke Bowman, and Titus Moss. I expect the number 4 spot to be between Frank Bray or Curtis Vincent. Tight end, we will not be redshirting anybody. Looking at the offensive line, the only ones we will be redshirting are the freshmen, Mike Rhodes and Willie Wiggins and Stephen Allen. Next up, on to the defensive line, no left ends or right ends except for Nick Gardner. Defensive tackle, we'll be redshirting not Quantavius, I'm used to Quantavius. This is actually Kez October. Octavius and Quantavius' little broski. On outside linebacker, Dylan Washington will be redshirted. Joe Brewer will be redshirted, and so will Dante Rollins. On to the secondary, Richard Richards will be redshirted, and so will Mac Terry. Kevin Blanchard will be redshirted. Jock Vallone will be redshirted, and that's it. So pretty much everybody who's eligible to be redshirted, except for John Cummings. And we'll get back to Cummings with the running back position battle, which we'll highlight next episode. Now we are going to take a look at the depth chart, and remember, this is the projected depth chart. We could see some changes. Quarterback is what you'd pretty much expect, Curtis, Allen, and Westwood. The running back position is obviously the position battle we will be highlighting. Patrick Daly is the favorite to start, but maybe his role is just best suited as a change of pace back. Everyone competing in the running back competition will be him, Jason Gibbs, John Cummings, and then maybe some of these guys like Tim Becker, Jamal Hill find a way to come in, but I think the main competitors will be Cummings, Gibbs, and Daly. Fullback will be Jeff Brandt. Receiver, this is also projected. Wiggins, Newton, and Eddie Luco are locked. However, we could look at Frank Bray or Curtis Vincent for the number 4 spot. We also got, or I guess the slot spot. And we also have some talented athletes like Rodney Allen, who can play wide receiver if need be. On to tight end, only 2 on the roster. Pretty much what you'd expect. Ronald Young, then Ray White. The offensive line is also what is to be expected. Josh McClelland, Neil Scott, Mike Carter, Patrick Young, And right tackle is really the only position of debate. We could go with J.B. Givens, the freshman, or Bobby Fagan, the senior. Fagan's a little bit better, but for right now, we're going to go with J.B. Givens. That is, however, subject to change. Cole Spencer, obviously, be left end. Right end will be Ray Johnson. The defensive line, as you can see, is no different from last year. The linebacking core is a little bit different without Owen Jackson. Still got Lawrence McCoon at left outside. Justin McGee is now the middle linebacker. And Lewis Kahn is now at right outside. On to the secondary. Josh Wilson, Andy Pino, John Paul Patterson, and Steve Harvey will each get 1, 2, 3, 4 at corner, just like last year. Anthony Mitchell at the 5 spot. Looking at 3 safety, I expect to give that to Marcus Lee, with Steve Harvey being the number 4 corner. Harvey played really well in that role last year, so I don't see any reason to change it. And then Marcus Jones I like as the strong safety. Kicker will be Volker Gans. Punter will be Greg Giorli. Kick returners will have a battle for this, but I expect it to be Patrick Daly and Ulri Ayaluko, who is 99 speed now. Punt returner, Patrick Daly should be the main one. Kickoffs will be done by Volker Gans, and the long snapper will be Mike Carter. Here's a look at the schedule for now. It is subject to change. If you have some teams in mind who you'd like to see us play, I'm open to suggestions in the Discord server. If you're not already in it, there should be a link in the description if you would like to join and connect with me and other fans, and obviously make decisions like who we should play in the non-conference games. But for now, what we're doing is opening game versus Utah State, our rivals. Week 2 bye week. Week 3 at MetLife Stadium against the defending champion Texas Longhorns led by Kyle Jackson. This was the first week that Texas was available. Week 4 home versus Iowa State. Week 5 opening off actual conference games versus Cal. Week 6 bye week. Week 7 at number 7 LSU versus Utah versus Washington at Oregon versus Air Force. Senior Day versus Boise State at Colorado and at BYU. So that's what we're rocking with for now. Remember, it is subject to change. So if you do want to see a different schedule, make sure to let me know in the comments or Discord. So that'll do it for today's episode. Next one will be the preseason. I have to make all the custom recruits first, so it might take a few days. But then we got the preseason position battles, preseason polls, official schedule, official depth chart, official red shirts, all that good stuff. So make sure to stick around for that one. Thank you for coming in the premiere if you did make it. If not, thanks for watching the video anyway. I hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, have a good one. Peace out, everybody.